All right, peace and blessings. First and foremost, I give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God Yahweh in the name of His Son, who the world calls Jesus Christ, real name Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew. All right, this is going to be part one of, Lord willing, many parts of this new series, Mysteries of History, right, going into different prophecies that have come to pass in the Bible. So with this one, we'll be going into the fifth trumpet in Revelation 9, right, dealing with World War I, right, the end of imperialism, also called the Great War. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so Revelation chapter 9, verse 1, it says, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit." Right, so this is taking place somewhere in the bottomless pit. We're going to find out what this is, right, as well as who this star is. Right, it says he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit. Right, so the bottomless pit is dealing with Europe. All right, continent with the least amount of natural resources. Right, so the continent with abundant natural resources is definitely Africa. Right, think of all the precious metals that come out of Africa that needs to get imported into Europe in order for them to make all those cars. Right, continent with the least amount of natural resources is Europe. Right, and that being really one of their main exports. Europe main export. Right, their total or the most recent exports are led by cars, right? 361 billion. But where do they get the metals to make the cars? Right, they get them from Africa. So we figured out what the bottomless pit is, right? It's dealing with the continent of Europe, right? The continent with the least amount of natural resources. And it says a star fell from heaven, right? This star is dealing with Kaiser Wilhelm II, right? To him was given the key of the bottomless pit, right? He's in authority or rulership. Right, so when we look at Kaiser Wilhelm II, it says he was the last German emperor and king of Prussia from 1888 until his abdication in 1918, right, towards the end of World War One, or what is classified sometimes as the end of World War One. Right, it says which marked the end of the German Empire as well as the Hohenzollern dynasty. Right, so the German Empire was one of the main crucial powers in World War One. So when we look at World War One, it says a global conflict between two coalitions, the Allies, right, which you got the U.S., the United Kingdom, France, Russia, Italy, Japan, right, so on. It says and the Central Powers, right. So the Central Powers, right, the principal Central Power is the German Empire, right. So him having the key to the bottomless pit, right, he is in rulership or in authority or reigning at this time. So we go back. Right. So the fifth angel sounded. I saw a star fall from heaven. Right. Kaiser Wilhelm unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. Right. So he is ruling. He is the German emperor or the last king of Prussia. It says he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit. Right. This smoke is dealing with this war. As the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke pit. Right. So we look at World War One. Combat images. Right, as this war is going on, as bombs are dropping, right, grenades blowing up, different things like that. Right, the sky is darkened. Let's see, we want to smoke. Right, so the sky was darkened by reason of this smoke or by reason of this war that's going on. So it says the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. Right, so you think about what a swarm of locusts looks like. Right, and the very peculiar shape that these bugs have. Right, that long body with the wings on the side. So it says a swarm of locusts, or it says came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power. Right, so these locusts have power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Right, how does the scorpion have power, or where is the power of the scorpion located? In the tail, right, in the stinger. So what is he describing? John the Revelator is describing these warplanes, right? These warplanes that also had a gunner in the back, right? This is that power in the tail. And when he's seeing a swarm of these planes, right, or a bunch of these planes in array going into battle, these look like the swarm of locusts, right? This is what he's describing. Now we're playing with the gunner. Right, so this gunner is located in the rear of the plane, right? This is that locust having the power in his tail as the power of the scorpion. Right, so the scorpions of the earth have power. Verse 4, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Right, so notice it calls certain men grass and trees, because then it juxtaposes these people not being hurt with men who don't have this seal of God suffering injuries, right, or suffering casualties. So what is this talking about? Let's go to Isaiah 40. Right, Isaiah 41, it says, comfort ye, my people, saith your God, right? Who is God's chosen people? The Israelites, right? So he's talking about the children of Israel. Verse 5, and the glory of Yahweh, or the glory of the Lord, shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, right? Talking about the flesh. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. The voice said, cry, and he said, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all the goodliness thereof is as the flower of the field. The grass therewith, the flower fadeth, because the Spirit of the Lord bloweth upon it. Surely the people is grass. So we see the children of Israel, or Zion, or Jerusalem, right? All these words being interchangeable, describing the chosen people being called grass, right? As well as in the gospel, right? Isaiah 61, verse 3, it says, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, again, dealing with the chosen people, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called, who's being called what? Zion is being called what? Trees of righteousness. So again, we see the chosen people being referred to as grass as well as trees, right? So this is who is talking about that is not going to be hurt, right? That's not going to suffer casualties in this war, right? But only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads, right? And when we look at a comparative study of white and black American soldiers during the First World War. So it says, when the United States entered the First World in 1917, immediate questions arose concerning the fate of black men within the organization. Black soldiers had long been segregated into race-specific units, right? Something like the Harlem Hellfighters, which we're about to read about, in the regular army, and army officials had no intention of tampering with this long-standing policy. How many African American soldiers would enter the army and whether or not they would fight in large numbers remained an open question. Over the course of the war, a systematic pattern of discrimination emerged. Blacks were more likely than white soldiers to be drafted, placed in labor battalions, given inferior medical care, and refused commissions. A comparison between the wartime and post-war experiences of white and black soldiers underscores the disadvantaged position of African American soldiers within the wartime army, right? So we see these people being put to labor, right? Put to use to where they're not on the battlefield, right? And this is by all the Most High's design, because it said that what? Hurt not the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, right? So God's chosen people, right? So-called African Americans being amongst the chosen people, right, of the tribe of Judah. These people were not going to be hurt or suffer casualties. Now, when we look at the numbers, let's see. Right here, it says, because they were only 3% of because they were only 3% of American combat forces, African Americans suffered substantially fewer battlefield deaths and wounds than white soldiers. Overall, black soldiers from the 92nd and 93rd Combat Divisions accounted for 773 of the 52,947 battlefield deaths sustained by the American Expeditionary Force in France during the war. Less than 2% of all battlefield fatalities, right? And dealing with prophecy and the pinpoint accuracy of the prophecies of the Lord, of the Holy Bible, right? We understand that this few number, the fact that it's under 1,000, out of all the tens of thousands that were in combat. Let's look up African American death toll World War I. Right, this can't be talking about the actual chosen people, but rather people who are classified African American that would be descendants of these other nations, whether they be having a white father or someone of another nation, someone outside of the nation of Israel, right? Numbers 1 and 18, Ezra 2 and 59 talks about you being a descendant of your father, right? So whatever your father is, that is what your race is. So these people would not be of the chosen lineage, because it already said that the chosen people were not going to be hurt in this war. They're not going to suffer casualties. So it says between 370,000 and 400,000 African Americans served during World War I, Rev said. Most served as stevedores, camp laborers, and in logistical support. About 40 to 50,000 saw combat, and about 770 were killed. Right, again, just covered that low number. Now, even dealing with, again, this being the will of the Most High, that these people, even though they were serving in the war, they were given specific positions to where they wouldn't necessarily see combat, or a majority of them would not see combat. So this is on the U.S. military website. African American World War I Harlem Hellfighters proved their mettle patriotism in combat. Says when the African American National Guard soldiers of New York's 15th Infantry Regiment arrived in France in December 1917, they expected to conduct combat training and enter the trenches of the Western Front right away. They could not have been more wrong. The black troops were ordered to unload supply ships at the docks for their first months in France, joining the mass of supply troops known as stevedores, working long hours in the port at Saint-Nazaire. More than 380,000 African Americans served in the Army during World War I, according to the National Archives. Approximately 200,000 of these were sent to Europe, but more than half of those who deployed were assigned to labor in stevedore battalions, assigned to tasks that many Army leaders saw as most appropriate. These troops performed essential duties for the American Expeditionary Force, building roads, bridges, and trenches in support of the frontline battles, right? So most of them necessarily weren't in the combat themselves, right? We saw it said about 40 to 50,000. In Saint-Nazaire, the New York National Guard soldiers learned they would work to prepare the docks and rail lines to be a major port of entry for the hundreds of thousands of forces yet to arrive in France. The African American regiment was a quick and easy source of labor, right? Just showing that the racism and how it said segregation that we face as a people, even when we were trying to be patriotic and serve a country that doesn't care about us, right? According to author Stephen Harris in his 2003 book, Harlem Hellfighters, right? So in his book, right, this author right here, this man, Stephen L. Harris, wrote that African American regiment was a quick and easy source of labor. Pershing would have a source of cheap labor, Harris wrote. Second, he wouldn't have to worry about what to do with black soldiers, particularly when he might have to mix them in with white troops, right? Hence why they were sent into Europe, right? The Harlem Hellfighters. Now, going back to Revelation 9, right? So these elect men, right, the chosen people, were not going to be hurt in this war. Verse 5, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh the man, right? Again, dealing with these warplanes, right? And the 5 months, right? The length of this war, right? From the start in 1914 to the official end in 1919 with the Treaty of Versailles, right? So the Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919 at the Palace of Versailles in Paris at the end of World War I. codified peace terms between Germany and the victorious Allies. The Treaty of Versailles held Germany responsible for starting the war and imposed harsh penalties on the Germans, including loss of territory, massive reparation payments, and demilitarization. Far from the peace without victory that U.S. President Woodrow Wilson had outlined in his famous 14 points in early 1918, the Treaty of Versailles humiliated Germany while failing to resolve the underlying issues that had led to war in the first place. Economic distress and seething resentment of the treaty within Germany helped fuel the rise of and his Nazi party, as well as World War II. All right, just making sure to refrain from saying certain keywords to keep this video from getting flagged. Now, I think I have it pulled up also. Prussia. Okay. Right, so it says that they should be tormented 5 months, right? The spiritually talking about 5 years, 1914 to 1919, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion, dealing with those warplanes, right? The gunner being in the rear of those planes when he striketh the man. And in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Right. So how many people were suffering injuries and were not passing away from them? I believe this website had the injuries on here. Wounded. Okay, right. It says of American soldiers wounded, 4,408 were black and 198,000 were white. And even this being compared to the death toll, right? The casualties. It said 52,000 battlefield deaths sustained by the American Expeditionary Force. And it's saying 198,000 people were wounded. So again, this is that men seeking death and not finding it, right? People having their limbs blown off, stepping on a landmine, getting hit by these warplanes or whatever the case may be, right? Suffering severe injuries and not dying, right? But death is fleeing from them, right? That's the Most High tormenting these people. Verse 7, and the shapes of the locusts, again, dealing with these warplanes, were like unto horses prepared unto battle. All right, so let's go back to that image with the warplanes being in array, right? Like horses gathering, or like a horse stampeding into the way they used to fight wars, right, in the 1800s. Let's see. Shapes of locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women. Right. So now it's describing these Prussian soldiers. Right. So it says on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold. So we look up Prussian army helmet. Right. Crown like gold. Says as the faces of men, right? As they wear this helmet, you can see their face. And it said hair like the hair of women, or as the hair of women, right? This high ponytail, right? Something called pickelhaube hair. Right, this pickelhaube helmet with this high ponytail on top, right? That's the hair of women that John the Revelator is seeing. Right, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Right, so he's going back and forth between describing the warplanes, describing the soldiers, and then the warplanes again. Right, so saying these warplanes had teeth of lions. World War I warplane nose art. Right, how they had these shark mouth painted on there. I believe I had a right here, air cord art, the origins of shark mouth nose art. Let's get this up off the screen. It's right here above. This is what's pictured. World War I German Roland C-2 featuring a shark-like mouth. Interestingly enough, the aircraft was commonly referred to as the wallfish or whale. Right, so they painted a shark mouth, but it's being referred to as the wallfish or whale. And John the Revelator is comparing it to the teeth of a lion. Right, and they had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron. Right, so you see this plane being made of heavy metals. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Right. So how loud these engines are on these warplanes. All right, let's look up warplane. I believe it's in my warplane. Matter of fact, I'll do this.
Air combat was becoming more complex and more brutal. 1,500 British, French and American aircraft streamed over the lines in early September against half as many German planes. Any kind of individual effort was eclipsed by the huge numbers of attacking forces.
All right. So we had got the audio of the warplane, right? All right here. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle, right? So he's comparing the sound of these engines on these warplanes to the sound of a stampede, right? Or how loud many horses would sound. Verse 10, and they had tails like unto scorpions. So again, that gunner being in the rear of the plane, right? They had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. Again, 1914 to the official end of that war in 1919 with the Treaty of Versailles. And they had a king over them, right? The last king of Prussia, right? The last German emperor, Kaiser Wilhelm II, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue had his name Apollyon. Right, so what do these words mean? Right, in the Hebrew tongue, Abaddon means destruction. Right, in the Greek tongue had his name Apollyon, which means destroyer. Right, so Kaiser Wilhelm II would be referred to as the destroyer. And when we look at what his name was, what he was referred to as, right, Kaiser Wilhelm II, the German Kaiser, the King of Prussia from 1888 to 1918, was one of the most recognizable public figures of World War I. He gained a reputation as a swaggering militarist through his speeches and ill-advised newspaper interviews. While Wilhelm did not actively seek war and tried to hold back his generals from mobilizing the German army in the summer of 1914, his verbal outbursts and his open enjoyment of the title Supreme Warlord, right? This is his title, Supreme Warlord, what he's referred to as. And we see the scriptures calling this king over the bottomless pit, destroyer or destruction, right? Abaddon meaning destruction, Apollyon meaning destroyer. One woe is past, right? This is World War I, right? Or the Great War, bringing an end to imperialism in Europe, right? One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter, right? So after World War I came World War II in the 1940s, and then World War III being on the horizon. So with that, Lord willing, it was edifying. There's more understanding, a little bit more in-depth breakdown from the short. And again, I give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, Yahweh, in the name of His Son, who the world calls Jesus Christ, real name Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew. And peace and blessings. Shalom.